Do you have questions about 3D printing? Well, today I'm going to answer the top 5 questions that I get from people that are interested in 3D printing. See you guys inside. Hello and welcome to today's video. Today's video, as I said, these are the top 5 questions I get asked by people that are thinking about getting into 3D printing. So basically this is going to be a quick video, but hopefully I'm going to give you some substance and give you some direction if you're interested in 3D printing, but also just helping you find a way to get started, which is the whole goal of my channel, is helping people get started 3D printing and keep 3D printing. That's the real trick with 3D printing. Is it's easy to buy a printer and a filament and try it and give up. The whole real goal of this channel is to teach you how to keep going with it and actually make it a good, viable hobby for you. So as we get ready to dig into the 5 questions, the first thing I have to ask, if you enjoy the content on this video, please hit that subscribe button. Join the crew, join the family here so that we can help each other out and build a better community and help keep each other 3D printing, because that is the entire goal. Also, if you have a question about 3D printing or where I find models or any of this stuff, leave a comment down below. I would love to have the comment down there and try to help you out and get you the answer. Okay? So, other than that, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. It really does help us out with YouTube and all that fun stuff. So, and it lets me know I'm making content that you enjoy. So, let's move on to the first question. So the first question that I'm going to answer is, my print failed. Why did it fail? Well, that question is a loaded gun. Now, I follow several Facebook groups and different things like that out there to try to help people out and keep printing and answer questions and stuff like that. And the number one thing that is always the first thing that I see, no matter what it is your bed level. That's not always the correct solution. Granted, a lot of problems occur because your bed is not level to your gantry, to your axis. So bed leveling, yes, is one of the most important skills that you can learn in 3D printing and that you have to make sure you look at, but it's also the steps along the way. So finding a model, going through Cura or your slicer, I'm going to say slicer on this, because you could be doing this in resin, which in that case you may be using Shinto Box or another program to do this, but did you put appropriate supports on your model? Was it turned the best way for that model to print? So there's a lot of questions that could be happening to why your print failed. And it's not always going to be the bed level. So let's get that out of the picture right now. We're not going to talk about that. If you're curious about bed leveling, card up above here is going to have a link to my bed leveling video where I show you 3 ways to level your bed. But it could have been a clogged nozzle. It could have been a lot of things that caused the problem. It could have run out of filament. So there's all kinds of problems that can happen with this hobby that you got to watch out for and make sure that you're doing it in a way that you enjoy. So keep that in mind as you print, that different problems can happen for different reasons. It could be in your slicer that you didn't set your temperature right for a new filament that you're using. That can be a lot of problems too. So make sure you're looking at your filament, you're looking at your settings, you look at how your model is sitting as you get ready to slice it, and then make sure, of course, you have enough bed adhesion, your plate's level, and you've got enough filament on the spool, and hopefully you'll get a good print. You know, always one thing I make sure to do is I watch my first layers lay down. I watch the first layers lay down before I walk away, just to make sure I'm getting that first good smooth layer. And that way I can adjust my table if I see something's kind of off. So that's kind of the first real loaded question. So let's move on to the second question. So the second question I'm going to answer is, where can I find models? So if it's a video on my channel that I did over a print, the model links will always be in the description. I want you guys to go print this stuff too, because you've seen me do it. I hope you enjoy the model and want to print it yourself. So the links are always in my description, but I have a video popping up here in the cards of my top 5 ways of finding models. So Thingiverse, Cults 3D, Yagi, there's an app for iPhone and Android called Thinger. They're all good ways to find models for you to print. Now, just kind of keep an eye and look at the type of model you're printing, because it may be better to print in resin, like a little miniature, versus a huge thing that you have to print a ton of pieces to get to assemble to make the model that you tried to do on a small resin printer. So kind of keep an eye on what you're printing, but go for what you want to print. So if there's a model out there, there's no point in recreating the wheel. So those are my top 5. Go check out that video if you have questions or just want to see the sites. So another question I see quite frequently is, how can I make my own models? So for anybody that's just beginning out, I usually recommend Tinkercad. It's free. It's a pretty easy program. I believe there's another one called Sketchfab that's also free. Pretty cool, easy program. But the third program that's free out there is also Fusion 360 from AutoCAD. It's a really robust program, even in the freeware version that's for personal use. You can get a lot of good use out of that program. And there, of course, there are all kinds of pay-for programs that you can get to create the STL or .obj files that you want to create. But those are just a couple of the programs that I enjoy. But for anybody just starting out, I usually steer them to Tinkercad. It's web-based, pretty easy to learn, and has pretty good tutorials with it too. So that's where I usually start. For simple models, it's the way to go. So that's kind of the answer to my third question. Those are kind of the 3 that I play with and work with. I'm really kind of trying to delve into Fusion 360 to bring you guys some of my own models this time as the future goes around. So let's jump into the 4th question. So guys, we're about halfway through here, and I want to take a moment to add that, hey, I've opened up a Patreon page. If you want to support this channel, help with getting filament and having choices that you see of what's printed on this model, come join me over on Patreon. There's 4 different levels. Each level has a total different set of benefits to it. I hope you guys come over, join us, become a supporter of the channel, and enjoy that benefit. Also, if you're thinking about 3D printing, over on mastermind.com, I have created an intro course for 3D printing with filament printers. So if you guys are interested and curious about that, that link is also down in the description. Head on over and take a look at the course. So let's get on to the next question. So the 4th question I'm going to answer is, what printer should I get? So that's a loaded one and kind of ties into question 1. So first off, the question comes, what are you wanting to print? And with what you're wanting to print, are you wanting to print miniatures? Are you wanting to print props? Are you wanting to do stuff for your drones? Are you wanting to just make cool stuff around the house, like paint holders and paper towel holders and organizers? What is it exactly you're wanting to do? Because suggesting what is the first printer to get really goes along with what you're wanting to print and what you're wanting to do. So I'm going to talk about Filament first, FDM. Then I'm going to talk about Resin here real quick. So if you're wanting to print cool things, organizers, bigger things, stuff like what's right behind me here on the wall, you probably want to look at a filament printer, which I would recommend the most honest personal experience printer that I have, because I've had a Mono Mini, I've had an Ender 2. The Ender 3 is the way to go for your first printer. Whether it's the Ender 3 Pro or the Ender 3 V2. They're great printers, they're easy to learn, parts are cheap, and they do a really good job printing for the cost. You can get an Ender 3 original, basic Ender 3, for about 176 bucks right now, roughly, somewhere in that range. And that price, I've seen them down at 150. I've seen the Ender 3 V2, which are about $280, at around $200. So the cost is not that much to get into the printer. You can get a good beginner printer for under $300. Now, granted, you're limited on the bed size, but check out the video I've listed up above me here in the card of Mesh Mixer, which is another free program that you can go and take larger models and break them up into smaller pieces to print and assemble on your own. So really, there's no limitation on what your printer can do as long as you have the software to make the models fit. So with that one is the way I would go for a beginner printer. Now, if you want something bigger, the CR10 is the way to go. I have the CR10 and I have the CR10 V2s. I love them both. The CR10 V2 is honestly my go-to printer for most of my projects. I love the big build area. It just runs smooth, very little maintenance on it. Once I had it calibrated and dialed in, I never really have to worry about it. I do maintenance on it once a week just to make sure we're level and we're still running good. Great printer. But let's talk resin. I like the Creality LRD002. I've got Mars Pros, I've got a Ilgu Mars Pro back there, I've got 2 of those back there, but in all honesty, the Creality LRD002 has been the simplest resin printer I've ever worked with. I've leveled the bed once, and I have printed and printed and printed and printed, and it just works great. The Mars Pro, yeah, I have to level it over once in a while. You know, it is a bit of a task. I have to clean everything up, take the resin bed off, make sure it's not leaking or anything, put the piece of paper, get the head level, put it all back together, and get it working. But you know what? They're both great printers. I love them both. I want to get into the Anycubic, especially that new Photon Mono X. I'm really curious about that printer, but that time will come for that, because really I haven't brought resin printing into the channel yet. That is something you're going to see this year, is me doing more with the resin printers, just still trying to find a good way to time lapse a resin print, because that first hour you don't even see anything. It's all down in the vat. So kind of one of those things, still learning on that one, how to bring you guys that better material. So with that said, let's jump on to the final question. The final question is, which is better, resin or filament? You know, in all honesty, they're both great. They both have their uses. If you need something with high detail and not too worried about size, the resin printer is a way to go. Especially if you're wanting to do miniatures, D&D, Warhammer, anything along those lines, the resin printer is probably where you want to go. Now, turntable, filament printer, large build areas, and honestly great detail. As long as you get your printer dialed in, you can do awesome things. A lot of the same things that you can do with a resin printer, you can do with a filament printer, as long as you're willing to, make modifications, make changes, dial in your nozzles, change your nozzle down to a 0.02 if you're looking for extreme fine detail, cut things up in Mesh Mixer so that the models can be made in different pieces so you don't have a ton of support to deal with. So in all honesty, they're both awesome ways to go. But in all honesty, if you're just wanting to get into 3D printing, start with a filament printer. Start with that Ender 3 or that CR10. Get in there, learn that, then add resin printers. Because I'll tell you something I've learned about this hobby and has been one of the biggest things for me. I bought one printer. That was awesome. But I can only print one thing at a time. And it drove me nuts, and I couldn't print fast enough. So I bought a second. Then I bought a third. Now I think the shop has 9 printers in it back there right now. That, I'm still sometimes waiting for a printer to be open to do a print. That I just enjoy making this material. Not only making the stuff and showing it to you guys for the channel, but also making stuff for people around me. So I sometimes do pay for projects and different things like that. The pegboard. Yeah, I had the channel in mind when I made it, but that was totally for me to have really good organization. A lot of our stuff, organizers in the kitchen, were printed so that the kitchen could be better and easily used. There's 3D prints all over my house. So it's kind of one of those things, once you get the tool and you get to learn it, then you start to see the potential of the tool. Whether you go resin or you go filament, there's a lot of ability and growth that these tools can do. Now granted, do I enjoy printing my minis on my resin printer? Yeah, a lot better than I do on my filament printer, because I have to make a bunch of adjustments, and that's a lot of work I don't have to do in Mesh Mixer, because I can just put it in the resin printer and get the same print. So they complement each other in the long run. So I really can't say which is better. If you're just wanting to get into 3D printing, then I do recommend starting out with the filament printers. So one, cost, a spool of filament's about $17-18 for a good spool, where about a jug of resin can cost about $30 for a 1 kg bottle versus a 1 kg spool of filament. So, and then you've got cleanup and different things, and resin is a lot more messy, honestly, than filament printers. So, but filament, you can have a lot of debris and stuff like that as well. So it's not all perfect. And then you got to pick off support. So they both have their nas, but as far as safety and everything else, filament is definitely a good way to start and learn and get yourself going. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, enjoyed this content. Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button, join the crew for more stuff like this, more prints like you'll see back here on the wall. And as we just keep growing and changing, we'll see what else we add to the channel. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you have a good one. We'll see you in the next video.